Alrighty, welcome back. I took a bit of a longer intro there because when I recorded um, my announcement earlier today, it cut off the beginning and cut off the end. So my bad. Live and learn. Anyways, welcome to Monday Morning Mindset Masterclass number 4. This is 2025, June the 2nd. And like that. Sorry, I apologize. I am in the worst internet zone in the country. Um, Upload and download speeds are terrible, even on 5G and this and that. It's better than it could have been. Anyways, I'm happy to be here. Hope you're happy to be here, and I'm just going to get right into it. I said earlier today in my announcement, you may not like today's topic, and you honestly may not like today's topic. Today's topic is honesty. So, but I'm going to start with my three of my key principles of my philosophies on life, especially as it comes to mindset. And let's just start with that, then we'll dig into today's topic. So, just as a reminder. So, number one is your mindset matters. And today I'm going to say your mindset matters because honesty matters. We'll get into that, as said, in a minute. All about honesty today. Number two, invest in yourself because you are your greatest asset. If no one ever told you that before, I'm telling you right now, you are your greatest asset. So invest in yourself. And number three, take one action today because without action, your intentions are just dreams. Okay, so today we're going to dig into honesty and a possibly different take than you've seen. I'll have two disclaimers here today. One is this content is 75 to 90% baked. Okay, fully baked. It's not 100% fully baked. It's a little bit off the cuff, but it's. I've been thinking about these things in quite a bit of depth for a while. I just maybe don't have all the perfect examples and stories and everything to go with it, but the concepts themselves I think are fairly well baked. My delivery may not be as smooth as you might like because of the what I said there about stories and everything. So the second disclaimer here, I'm going to say this for anyone to put themselves out there and say, here's some thoughts about something like honesty. There's a certain vulnerability to that makes most people very nervous, and which is why very few people probably talk about something like honesty. There's things I could tell you about my life where you might go, okay, well, when he was 5, he lied about not taking a cookie from the cookie jar, right? And you could hold that against me and you could say, well, he's clearly not an honest person, right? Discounting the fact that I've matured quite a bit since I was 5 and even since I was 45 or 50, I've matured quite a bit. So I'm not here to make excuses, to be honest with you. But I realize that starting a conversation about honesty naturally puts me in the spotlight in a way that makes some people question, or will make some people question, the truth of anything I might say after this. Especially if you don't want to believe what I say next in this video or hereafter in my life. Or if you're challenged or offended by what I say, you certainly won't want to believe or think I'm honest, right? You'll naturally discount a bunch of what I say just for that reason. Or maybe you just don't think I'm a genuine person at all or a decent person. Maybe I'm not your glass of whiskey or your cup of tea or glass of wine or whatever. That's fine. You don't have to believe what I say. I don't require you to believe that I am who I say I am or what I say I am or anything that I say. And if that's your inclination, you maybe just want to close your browser and move on, get on with your day. That's fine. I'm not here to prove to you that I'm legit, not you specifically. And I know that may seem unbelievable simply just because part of me does want you to believe what I'm saying, wants you to accept what I'm saying, and wants your quote unquote approval. But I don't necessarily need your approval or your acceptance. I do want people generally to think about what I'm saying, or I wouldn't say it. Right? That's just sort of obvious. Um, but it doesn't have to be you. So if you don't like it, if you don't want it, you don't want to hear it, that's fine. I won't be offended. You can go about your merry way. Um, and we don't have to agree 100% on everything that we believe or think or do to be friends, right? I have some of my closest friends. I don't believe the same beliefs they have about everything in life, and vice versa. So, and we're still good friends. So that's okay. But if you want to grow, if you want to improve, if you want to be the best version of yourself, I strongly encourage you to listen to what I'm about to say today about honesty with an open mind, willingly process it or process it, however you prefer. Test it in your life, in yourself and other people. See if there isn't a deeper, something deeper here than just your basic thoughts about honesty that you probably learned in kindergarten or Sunday school and maybe didn't question or really think about since. So anyway, again, this content is 75 to maybe 90% fully baked. Um, those are my disclaimers. So I want to just start with a definition of honesty, and this isn't a dictionary definition or whatever, but some of these words I pulled from internet dictionary definitions of honesty. One thing that comes to mind, probably 100% for everyone, is truthfulness. Right? If you're honest, you tell the truth. Another is authentic, right? That person's authentic. You think that they're an honest person. They're true. True is another word, right? They are true. They're a true person. There's I forget. There's a quote actually just popped into my head. Ancient text. There's a quote that said, there was nothing false about him. There was a certain man, a story. There was nothing false about him. That was how he was known. That's honesty. That's authentic. That's truthfulness, right? Nothing dishonest about that person. Real is another word for honest. Like, that person's real, right? You're going to get what you get. What they present is who they are. Another way to look at honesty, or another version definition of it, is freedom from deceit or fraud. And that's a great way to look at it, I think. So these are some of the common words or phrases that define or explain honesty. So why is honesty important? I think so. Honesty is one of my core. It's one of my core tenets of my core belief system, right? And I'm going to get into this over time. And when I publish my book, I'm going to talk about this in more detail with proper stories, fully baked, and all that. But honesty is important to me because I've we all, as a child, we go through that phase of life where we naturally we tell the truth, I think, right? Until we learn to lie, or we learn that telling the truth is painful. So like I mentioned earlier, I took an extra cookie from the cookie jar when mommy wasn't looking. Mommy came along and said, "Did you take?" With a look on her face, "Did you take another cookie?" So you can see the chocolate, on my chips marks on my face, right? Now I'm scared, right? No, right? So we learn that by experiencing the pain of telling the truth when we're very young. And some people, depending on a myriad of factors, they learn at a very young age the value of telling the truth and being honest and being authentic and free from deceit and fraud, right? But not everybody does. And I didn't learn that super early, like as a very young child. I was an older child. I was a teenager when I started to really appreciate the value of honesty and the importance of being true to myself and true and being about truth, and having a core principle or a core value of being honest. That doesn't mean I've always been honest since that time, but but it was in my mid late teens, when I started to really value honesty. And I'll go into a detail in the story maybe another day, or maybe in the book, about that transition or that realization for me. But in a nutshell, it came down to realizing that um, being dishonest, um, for the, to avoid pain. Let's say being dishonest to avoid the pain of the truth, the consequences of telling the truth, didn't always serve me the way that I thought it was going to. And I came to that realization in high school, and endeavored to put a mindset of dishonesty and avoiding pain and avoiding consequences behind me. And so that's something that I've been making more and more and more a priority in my life as I get older. Um, but part of what I realized there was that, when you are dishonest with other people, I'll just summarize that story in a nutshell to say that I realized that, um, you know, one mistake I made at that time was to think that, and this again, mindset, right? My mindset was, it's okay if I lie to other people, let's say authority figures, teachers, principal, parents. It's okay if I lie to them, as long as I know what's true, right? And I know the truth about me and this and that. So that was my mindset at the time. And so I practiced that during some of those high school years. Um, and I did avoid some consequences. I avoided some pain, but I also experienced other pain and other consequences from being dishonest at that time. So what I found out eventually was that it became impossible to actually make that separation. It was impossible to be dishonest with whoever I wanted, whatever authority figure I wanted, and also be 100% honest with myself. And part of that was that it's actually a lie that you can do that. It's not true that you can be dishonest with anyone else outside of yourself that you want whenever you want, and simultaneously be 100% honest with yourself, because of the truth that being dishonest hurts you when you're dishonest, right? It injures your inner self, your person, your core being, right? It does. So, um, yeah. So that's one reason why it's important to be honest. And there's other things that, and you can debate me on that all you want, right? Or debate other people. I'm not going to have a debate about it, but that's a core belief of mine from my own experience. Um, but there's other things in life that are core facts, truths, no matter what. You can call them scientific truths. You can call them whatever kind of truth you want. Things like gravity, right? Gravity, without the aid of any external assistance, gravity affects everyone the same, right? You take a brick and a feather and you drop it. You did this in junior high or high school. You a brick and a feather and you drop them off a building, or drop them in space in a vacuum, right? They both will fall at the same rate. And so you and me, if we both jumped off a ledge, balcony or whatever, jumped up and down on a trampoline, we're going to fall at the same rate. That's gravity. That's a universal fact or truth, right? So my point is, if you don't accept that there are certain truths like that, well, A, you're deceiving yourself, but B, there are certain things that none of us can escape. Certain truths, like we're all going to die eventually, right? That's a truth you can't escape. Another reason to be honest, why honesty is important, is that you deserve to know the truth, right? At least for and within yourself, right? About yourself and about the world as it relates to you. You deserve to know the truth. Like, you are a valuable person. You are a worthwhile, worthy person. You're not Wayne and Garth. We're not worthy. You are worthy, right? You're worthy of knowing the truth and being told the truth, and the truth being told about you, actually, right? Um, so own that, right? You deserve that. It's good for you, and it serves you to know the truth. So tell yourself the truth, right? And in that, tell the truth to other people. If you don't know what's true, and this is part of what I struggled with in high school, right? If you don't know what's true, that you're saying or that you're doing or that you're about, it's hard to get your bearing. It's hard to get a footing and get any stability in your life to be able to like move forward and improve your life or improve your situation. You can't get that footing if you don't have a basis of truth, knowing what's true or honest in your life, right? And the fourth thing is honesty is wisdom. Um, Honesty is wisdom. How else can I say that, really? It's wise to be honest, right? And we're going to talk about some other aspects of honesty here in a minute, but it is wise to be honest. And so think about that. If you want to have a good life, I think pursuing wisdom is important. Honesty, being honest, is part of a wise life. All right, so I want to talk about a different aspect of honesty, or a different way of looking at honesty. You might call it a different frame. There's a book I'm going to reference here somewhere. I'm not sure where I wrote it down. Oh, it's in the section. Okay. So there's a concept called directional accuracy, and versus honesty. So honesty, we've established what that is already. Just for review, right? Truthfulness, being authentic, being real, being free from deceit or fraud. That's being honest. Directional accuracy is, I would almost call it a version of honesty. Maybe it's honesty light. But directional accuracy means, I'll give you an example. So if, right, so in marketing, for example, a company will say, well, this is the best, coffee, right? This is the best coffee ever. Well, maybe that company's best coffee ever that they have ever made. It might have won an award saying it's the best coffee in that competition. Don't you love this mug, by the way? I'm just going to turn this around. I absolutely love this mug. This is my brother's mug. I love that. As a writer, I love anything to do with writing. Anyway, side note. So directional honesty would be like saying this is the best coffee. This is the best coffee. Well, it might be. It might be the best coffee I've ever had. Might be the best coffee that company's ever made. Might be the best coffee in that competition. Do you think it's the best coffee? You might not. You might disagree, right? It can be directionally accurate in the sense that it's not false, but it's not necessarily 100% accurate, right? Or 100% true. It's directionally accurate, but it's not necessarily 100% true. Let me think of I'm not sure that's even the best example to use. Another example another example might be like a goal, using for example, mission, vision, values, right? Company says, well, we aim to, am I losing my camera? Okay, notices here. We treat every customer equally, right? We don't discriminate, age, gender, color, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We don't discriminate, right? And can be directionally true, but it might not be 100% accurate because one employee might discriminate, right? So the company, their value is we don't discriminate, but there might be an employee that they hired that actually does discriminate, that fooled the hiring people or whatever, said they believe that, didn't really believe it, and that they actually do discriminate against people for some reason or another, right? So directionally accurate, it's directionally accurate that the company treats everyone the same, equality, et cetera, but it may not be 100% true, okay? I hope that's clear. I feel like there's a little bit more to dig in there, and that's where I say like 75 to 90% fully baked. I'll need to dig into that a little further to explain that better, I think. But I think you get the idea. So there's another, if you've heard of this guy named Chase Hughes, he's all over the internet right now. He's he's written, he's written a book. I don't know the title of it. I need to look it up. I don't want to buy it, but he's written a book about one of the top books in the world about hypnosis. And he's an expert on body language. He's an expert on narcissism and different kinds of, pathologies and things like that. And he talks about, how to know if your gut basically is telling you, I'm not sure this is true what this person's saying to me. It doesn't feel true. Something in me is telling me they're not being truthful with me. They're trying to deceive me, right? He says, just ask them plainly, is that true, right? Is what you're saying true? And if that person at least believes what they're saying is true and they believe it, there'll be a difference between how they answer that versus if, like, they'll answer it calmly, yes, and they might give an example, or they might say, yes, I experienced this personally, or I saw this, or yes, I did say or write that, or whatever. Versus if it's not true, if they're say a psychopath or sociopath and they're lying to you and that's how they are, and you just sense something's wrong, right, in what they said. If they're trying to deceive you, they'll often like get angry, right? How dare you question me? How dare you suggest that I'm not being honest with you? Rather than just reaffirm that what they said is true, they get all defensive. So that's a one way to tell if someone's maybe not being 100% truthful with you. Okay, so again, we'll dig into that more, that theory more. Okay, one other thought there. So honesty versus directional accuracy. So this idea of directional accuracy came to me from the creator of Dilbert, Scott Adams. And I'll save a bunch of backstory about how I know about Scott Adams, but he has a number of books. One is called Reframe Your Brain. And I strongly encourage you to read that. But he's the one that presented me with the idea of directional accuracy. And so Scott Adams, actually, if you want some wisdom, not everything he says is true or necessarily wise, or you won't necessarily believe it or agree with it. But a lot of what he says is very wise, and I believe is very true. And he's actually he does a daily free on Twitter, I think, like a podcast or vlog or whatever you call it, free live every single day, 7 days a week. He does this in the mornings at, I think it's 7 a.m. Pacific, 8 a.m. Mountain, 10 a.m. Eastern. And he's actually dying. So there's only 1 to 2 or 3 months left of him doing this. So lots of his content will live beyond his life, but he's got a lot of wisdom to share, and he's worth listening to. But he's the one that introduced me to this idea of directional accuracy, right? And so I encourage you to check out him and read and listen to what he said about that. See what you think about it after the fact. So where are we doing for time? Oh gosh, well, we're about half an hour in. Okay. So when 100% honesty isn't the best for you, so there are some situations where it isn't necessarily to your benefit to be 100% honest. And I should preface this by saying, or qualify this by saying, I grew up in a very, I'm not sure if strict is the right word, but very religious, conservative Christian home and community. And nothing cultish, but just very, black and white, right? The world is this way. You should always tell the truth, is what I was told growing up. But sometimes I've learned in my life that sometimes it isn't to your benefit to be 100% honest. And I don't mean this isn't a version of lying is good for you. Lying has no consequences, but sometimes the consequences of being 100% honest in every moment, at every time, with every question you're asked or whatever situation you're in, isn't necessarily going to serve you. So here's an example. Negotiation, right? If you're negotiating a price on something, well, let's say you're going to buy a building, right? or a business. You're going to buy a business from someone, and that business, is worth in a range of, let's say it's worth in a range of 1 to 1.5 million, right? If you paid 1.5 million for it, it would be a good value. It'd be a reasonable value. You'd get your money back. You'd be able to still grow it and do whatever and get a decent return on investment, right? But if the seller is willing to sell it for $1 million, you'd be happy to buy it for that, right? So, an example of this is, the buyer might say, well, what's your best offer? What's your top offer? Well, why would you say 1.5 million if he might be thinking, I'll let it go for $1 million. If I get 1.2, I'll be ecstatic, right? You want to get somewhere between 1 and 1.2 because you want him to be happy enough that the deal closes, him or her, right? That the deal closes, and that you get the asset of the business. But there's no way, there's no wisdom in saying, oh, 1.5 million is the top I'll pay, right? So you understand what I'm saying, right? It's not lying to not answer that question directly. It's you don't have an obligation to tell that. Be 100% truthful in every situation like that. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing lying about that. Another example is interrogation. Now you might think, well, you should always tell the truth to the police. I'm not going to get into the morals and ethics of police or laws or breaking laws or being questioned or being arrested or this or that. But I will say, you have the right to remain silent. Use it. It's not in your best interest. Even if you're 100% innocent, you didn't do whatever you said they're accusing you of, or whatever they're saying you did. It's not in your best interest to blab and blab and blab, right? So it's been said that any one of us, the most moral, ethical, legal, righteous person, if you follow them long enough and watch every single thing they did, you'd see some flaw. You'd see some error in judgment, or some mistake, or some law they broke or something, right? So, police speed, right? When they're on shift, when they're not on shift, police speed. Not every single police officer, but the police officers do that, right? So is that right? No, it's not. In the solving of or preventing of a crime, I don't think it's right. I don't know what the legal part of that is specifically, but I don't think it's right. But they do it, right? My point is, don't volunteer information, whether it's negotiation, interrogation. Don't volunteer information that you don't have to. It doesn't make you a dishonest person, right? Be wise about the information you share. There's a vulnerability to what you say and how much you expose of yourself, in terms of talking about your life and things. And you don't, we'll talk about this in a minute, you don't owe the world your 100% complete vulnerability and honesty, right? So be wise. And when situations, whether you're interrogated by police, or I'm not saying be an unlawful person or break the law, I'm just saying, whether you're interrogated by police, whether you're kidnapped, whether you're interrogated by a boss or a coworker or someone that you're not sure what their motive is in interrogating you, remain reserved, right? Save your innermost thoughts and words for a place that is safe for you to share. Okay. So that's a bit about when honesty is not the best for you, 100% honesty. And there's times when 100% honesty is not the best for other people, right? There's times when, I was just watching an example of this on Last of Us. I apologize for the saws, but I'm out on the balcony. This is real life. I watched the end of Last of Us this weekend. And there's a scene in there where one guy gets bitten by the zombies or whatever they are, and he's dying, and he asks to see his wife, right? Um, and he didn't make it. He wasn't like healthy enough, long enough to go and actually see his wife. Excuse me, before he died and say goodbye and make his peace with her, right? And so the guy that ended up killing him for his own sake and the sake of the community, Joel, said, he made a tough decision in this story. It's not real life; it's a story. Made a tough decision to end that guy's life before he risked infecting everybody else. When he went back and saw the guy's wife, he said to her, he told her basically, he told her lies. He didn't just omit truth. He told her lies. He said, he was brave till the end. He wanted to express how much he loved you. He right? So, and was that right or not? I don't know. It's a story. It doesn't matter in the story, but in real life, there are times when telling the truth is cruel, right? If there's no value to, in a situation like this, for example, if there's no value to telling the truth other than to say you 100% told the truth 100% of the time, every time, never lied, I personally don't think that's a necessary application of that core value, even though that's a core value of mine. And that's just one example, but that sort of thing happens in life. And, it's good to be honest. We should be honest with each other and with ourselves. Sometimes, though, it can just be cruel to be honest with people. And sometimes it's better just to not to support their fantasy or, false imaginations of things. But sometimes it's just, sometimes it's better just to be kind than to be 100% honest like that. Another situation is, so I visited a friend the other day. Um, and the friend was upset and the friend was complaining and the friend was saying, well, I'm upset about this, I'm upset about that, I don't like the way I'm being treated. And so I've stopped cooperating with people around me, right? And someone asked me, said, well, did you reinforce, like, did you tell them, smarten up, cooperate, da 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 da? And I said, no. I said, I didn't. Why did I not? I said, what I did was I just listened to that person. There's enough people around them telling them what to do and telling them how to be and telling them what to believe and telling them how they should be different and how they should change and how they should cooperate. Sometimes you just need a person that supports you, that this person's got my back, right? I didn't ever lie to that person. I didn't ever encourage them to do something that was illegal or morally wrong or ethically wrong. I just didn't criticize their poor judgment, right? Their lack of cooperation. I just listened. And sometimes you just got to listen to people and say, I love you. I got your back. I'm here beside you. I'm going to stand beside you while you go through this. I'm here if you need me. How can I help? Right? Forcing your beliefs on people who don't want to hear them, who aren't ready psychologically, emotionally, in other ways, ready to hear them, it serves no real value, I don't think. So sometimes just be with someone, just be there, be present, be accessible to them, listen, show them you love them, tell them you love them, and let that be enough, right? And if there's a chance, like there was a chance after an hour of this, person said to me, you know what, maybe I should cooperate. And I said, that's probably a good idea. And then they did. Like a few minutes later, they went and said, oh, he convinced me to cooperate. And I didn't. I just agreed with him that he should cooperate. So anyway, sometimes you can influence people for good without, not subconsciously, but without forcefully pushing your beliefs or your agenda on them. So, okay, let's move on. We're at what, 35 minutes, almost 36 minutes here. So another thing I want to say about this, and this comes from my experience as a growing up that I talked about a bit ago. You know, whatever your situation in life, whatever, wherever, however you find yourself, if you find yourself where you feel like I have no choice but to be dishonest, right? Um, and there are some extreme examples that rarely happen to the average person, but if you find yourself in a situation where you feel like the only way to survive is to lie, or survive the moment. I don't mean your entire life necessarily, but it could be. Um, but my point is, whatever your situation is, don't fool yourself. Be honest with yourself, right? And there's some great tools to help you do that. If you're, let's say, the average person going through life, trying to make your way, trying to provide for your family, trying to get ahead, trying to whatever, right? There's some good tools out there to help you um, be honest with yourself and look at and see the world honestly for what it is. And some of these tools I've used, and I have incorporated these into my worldview and into my mindset over the last number of years, after 2 divorces, and gaining and losing stepchildren, and after losing both parents, and becoming estranged with one or more of my close family members, and repairing some of that, and this and that. Some of these tools have been super helpful for me. And one of them, there's a book. There's a book called, I think it's a book, Radical Acceptance. At the very least, it's a concept, radical acceptance. And it's the idea of of taking the world as it comes to you, right? An example, this might be, well, somebody, okay, I'm in a relationship, let's say, and I don't like the way this person does this or that. I don't like the way they turn the toilet paper on the roll. They turn it the wrong way every time. Well, radical acceptance would just say, it doesn't matter. Just accept that that's the way it is with that person in that bathroom, in that house. That's the way the toilet paper is going to go. And that's okay. It's not hurting anything. It's whatever. Just let it be. Just accept it as it is, right? That's a small example, but another example could be, I'm in this job that I hate, right? I don't get respect. I don't like, there's no opportunity here. I'm not paid enough. I'm undervalued. Well, rather than try to fight and get, change that system, right? Just accept that system is that way and go get a job somewhere else. Level up your skills. Like I said earlier, invest in yourself, level up your skills, and go get a better job, get a different position in that company or in a different company. Start your own company. There's lots of different ways you can take radical acceptance of that reality and translate that into a better life for yourself without losing sleep, getting stressed, trying to force change in other people that you'll never change, right? You won't change. You can't change other people. So other than by influence and by, the way you treat them and the way you allow them to treat you. But one radical acceptance is that sometimes in your situation, relationship, job, city, whatever it is, you can't change the way other people treat you, and so you have to leave and do something different, go somewhere else. Another one is, and this is a combination of that and a combination of the general topic for today, but radical honesty, right? Sometimes practicing radical honesty is a good way to break out of the mode of that fear of consequences of honesty. Like, just practice it. Someone said, you go for lunch, right? The waitress says, "Oh, how's the soup today?" Say, "I actually don't like it. It's way too salty. It's cold," right? Could you bring me another one, right? And there's a way to do that respectfully. You don't have to yell or swear or whatever at them, but just say, could you bring me a fresh one that's hot and has less salt, right? Or whatever. Just say clearly, I don't like this, right? No, I don't want to go for a walk right now. I want to unwind and read a book, right? So radical honesty, right? And that's a good cure for. It takes time, it takes courage, right? Which is why people like me are here to help you and encourage you to and be a support for you. And there's other people in your life that can be a support for you. But when you find yourself like always trying to please other people, like there's this book called No More Mr. Nice Guy. It's a great book. It talks about how. Whoops, what did I do there? Okay, sorry. It talks about how um, a nice guy syndrome is when people think well, it's usually men, but women do this too sometimes, is they're basically people pleasers, right? And they bought into the mindset that if I just please people, if I tell them what they want to hear, if I give them what they want, then they'll give me what I want, which is love, affection, sex, whatever it is, right? That you want from them. The reality is, the truth is that it doesn't work that way, right? You go for long periods of time without getting what you want. You feel like you've sacrificed, and you're not being reciprocated, and then you get angry, and that's what nice guy syndrome is actually like a form. It's a deceptive personality situation. I won't say type, but it's a deceptive kind of personality situation that which is basically manipulative, right? And it's well meaning, it's well intended, right? But it's misguided, and it's not a healthy or a wise mindset to have. So if you feel like that's you or someone get them that book, right? And get them this book, Radical Honesty, too, and the one, Radical Acceptance, and help them and encourage them, or encourage yourself, or practice yourself, um, being radically honest. They'll help you break out of that motive, and you'll see that like you can be honest. People won't necessarily hate you, right? It's not the opposite of them loving you and being affectionate. It's somewhere in between, right? And they might appreciate your honesty and your vulnerability, and they might actually draw them closer to you. It might not, but it might. Okay. Excuse me. I gotta mute just for a second. All right, sorry about that. Okay, the last thing in this section about being honest with yourself, and this comes from the previous two things of radical acceptance and radical honesty, is especially the radical acceptance, is the realization or the truth that most people, that there's a saying like, the people that you're thinking are thinking of you, like so and so's they're always annoying me. They're not even thinking about you, right? They don't, on a level, certain level, they don't care about you. Like they're focused on themselves, right? Which is why in business and marketing they say, don't talk about your company, don't talk about yourself, talk about the customer, right? The customer is the hero. You might have heard that saying from Donald Miller. Customer is the hero. The customer is the center of the story that you're telling in marketing. So in life too, everyone else out there is thinking about themselves. How can I get ahead? How can I provide for my family? How can I overcome my challenges? How can I solve my problems? They're not consciously thinking about you, right? So keep that in mind. It's not because they're bad; they're just human. Everyone's got their own story that they're living, and they're the hero of their own story, and they're trying to find a guide to help them, or they're trying to make their own way without a guide, maybe. But they're solving their own problems. They're dealing with their own issues. They have their own shit to deal with. Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on here, but they have their own stuff to deal with. So they're not thinking about you. So just realize that. And they may or may not have the skills or the values that you have necessarily, right? You're thinking about yourself. You're working on yourself. They may not be, right? They may just be like, this is who I am. I'm never going to change. This is the way I'm going to go through life. And they may not have a capacity for expanding their mindset or considering other people, like how you fit into their life. So, that is what it is. So, why do people lie and how to deal with that? Well, people lie. You can imagine people lie because they're just trying to survive, right? They lie because they're afraid and suffer from fear. they might lie because they're selfish or narcissistic or a sociopath or psychopath. Those numbers are actually extremely small, compared to the whole population. But lots of selfish people out there, lots of greedy people out there that lie to get ahead, right? But how do you deal with that? Well, one way I'm going to actually put this right here because I can't believe I forgot to think about this, right? Is to set boundaries for yourself, right? Set healthy boundaries for you that work for you, and don't let people cross those. Extend grace to people. You're not perfect either, right? No one is 100% truthful about everything. This comes to expectations too, right? You're not perfect, and neither are they. Don't expect them to be. Nobody does honesty. The most honest, moral, godly, whatever, ethical person you can imagine is not 100% honest, integritous, moral, or authentic. They're not. Please don't think they are, because they're not. They're human like you and me, and so they have faults. And another thing too is this goes together with extending grace to people is, give people room to grow and to figure out how to speak their truth. We're all in a journey. We're at different places in a journey, and you have come a long ways in your journey to this point, but other people aren't necessarily there yet, right? Some are ahead of you, some are behind you, some aren't even on the road. But the people that you're concerned about, give them some room to develop, and give them room to figure out how to have the confidence to tell their story or their truth, right? Sometimes it takes literally to the end of a person's life on their deathbed before they feel they have the courage or the freedom or the lack of consequences to tell whatever their truth is. So let people take their journey. Don't try to force them on your journey. And you don't owe the world 100% of your vulnerability. I mentioned this earlier. You don't owe the world that, right? You owe it to yourself. You owe it to those that are closest to you, as long as they are safe people and healthy, wise people for you to be with and around. But you don't owe it to someone you work with, your boss necessarily. You don't owe it to the government necessarily. I'm not advocating for anarchy here, but my point is, you really only owe 100% vulnerability and truth to yourself. That's the only person. Beyond that, it's like an onion. It's stages, right? As you get further and further away from yourself, you owe less and less, have less and less obligation to be 100% vulnerable or honest with those people, because not all those people out there are for you, right? They're not. Back to radical acceptance and honesty. And one thing you can do is you can just say nothing, right? If you don't want to lie, if you just say, you can say, I'm sorry, I don't know you well enough to share those details with you. Or you could just say, no, thank you. Or you can just not say anything at all. Just ignore them, right? You don't matter to them really necessarily. They don't need to matter to you in that sense. All right. So in conclusion, we're at what, 49 minutes and change here. We've been, not quite an hour. It's okay. Started a few minutes late. So I just want to encourage you, be a good human. If you can't be 100% honest, or feel you can't be 100% honest in the situation, aim for directional accuracy, right? Try not to deceive whenever possible, but if you can't be 100% honest, aim for directional accuracy. If you can't be directionally accurate, remember, you don't owe the world your complete vulnerability or your complete honesty. Not everyone is safe. So say no, thank you. Say, you don't have to explain. Let's say someone asks you to, let's go out for dinner. You don't have to say, no, I have this or that thing to do. You can just say, I'm not available. Sorry. Or not sorry, right? I'm just not available then. Say no, thank you. Say if you really, need to, but or just say nothing. And So that's it. I'm curious to see how the feedback on this. I hope some of these things are a little bit of a stretch for you. If they're not, that's good. You're further down the path than the average person, I think. Not that I'm at the top of the path, but these are some things that I've grown in recently and that I've grown to understand and appreciate about honesty as a topic. It's a super important core value of mine. And I hope that this has shed some light on that for you in terms of how honesty can play a bigger part in your life, and how you can go your way better as a result of these things. So reach out, give me your comments, feedback, questions. I've got plans for the next X number of these, so we'll do that. But if there's something you want to hear about or want to know about or want help with in your mindset, please reach out. Cory at coryvance.com. No E in Cory. Cory at coryvance.com. Shoot me an email. Go from there. Cheers. Have a great day. Here's some music to send you out. Bye.